Some say a garden can be overwatered, others say it can be flooded on purpose. And if you uproot the oldest trees, then plant fast-growing vines in their place, you change the entire forest. This isn't about people, it's about patterns. It's about memory being replaced, language rewritten, roots confused. And when things collapse, they won't blame the gardeners, they'll blame the vines. Because that's how you shift the blame while installing a brand new ecosystem. A kingdom doesn't fall in a day. It falls in whispers, in trades, in invitations. First, the story gets changed. Then the gates are left open. And soon the ones who built it can't even find the door. But this isn't about outsiders. It's about insiders who sold the map for silver. And when the noise gets loud enough, truth sounds like treason. That's how a homeland becomes a holding. Managed, renamed, rewritten. Not by invasion, but by design. There's a quiet edit happening, not on screens, but in streets, in schools, in memories. You'll feel it before you see it. Names change, rules shift, belonging dissolves. They call it progress, but it feels more like erasure. A slow override of the script we grew up in. The borders blur, the voice of the land softens, until you can't hear it at all. And if you say, I remember how it was, they'll say you're the glitch, but you're not. You're the archive, and that's why they fear your recall. This isn't just about who walks the land, it's about who remembers it. See, when memory fades, so does the map, the language, the roots, the reasons. New names, new narratives, planted like seeds in soil already claimed. And the ones who speak of before, labelled outdated or dangerous. But silence isn't consent, and forgetting isn't peace. They're not just reshaping the surface, they're reprogramming the story. And if you lose the story, you lose the soul of the place. Ever feel like certain words don't mean what they used to? That's not a glitch, it's a design. Old meanings are being buried, new ones pushed. They want you to forget the sounds that mattered, the scripts that carried power, the tones that used to heal, but ancient tongues still hum beneath the static, buried in lullabies etched in stone. When you remember them, you remember yourself. Not all languages were meant for speaking. Some were designed to vibrate. Sacred sounds, sigils whispered through breath, shapes formed from frequency. Before alphabets, there were tones. Before tones, there was intent. Before intent, there was resonance. They didn't teach you this in school, because if they did, you'd start unlocking things they can't control. The original languages weren't just words, they were spells. That's why certain symbols repeat across cultures. The spiral, the staff, the serpent, not just coincidence, they're carryovers from a lost universal code. One that shaped the land, built the old cities, charged the pyramids. This is why the parasites rewrote language, to cut us off from the source, to scramble the signal, because words can bend light, letters can alter memory, and sacred geometry can open doors. They erased the tongue of the old builders, the one that harmonized stone and soul. Now we speak noise, flat words, dissonant scripts. Think about it. Why are the letters called characters? Why do we spell them? Because language isn't communication, it's incantation. You're casting frequency every time you speak. But the parasites gave us alphabets that distort resonance. Cursive was a current, runes were roots, symbols were signals. Now we talk in static and wonder why we feel lost. The oldest tongues didn't need paper. They moved air, bent time, shaped matter. Sound wasn't a byproduct, it was the blueprint. Before books, before alphabets, before even speech, there were tones, encoded into the bones of the earth, sung by the stars. The builders spoke in chords. They didn't name a thing, they activated it. They didn't say open, they hummed the frequency of unlocking. This is what was stolen, not just words, but world-building power. The fall of Babel wasn't about pride, it was about interference. The people spoke one tongue, a pure frequency, unified, resonant, capable of building anything. So what did the gods do? They didn't destroy the tower, they scrambled the signal, split the tongue, fractured the code, because together we were too powerful. Language became a prison after that, a wall of noise. No longer creation, but confusion. And we've been trying to remember ever since. But now, the fragments are returning. Through dreams, through sound, through the ones who remember what can't be taught. Every chant, every glyph, every whisper in the wind, it's a recall signal. You're not just learning, you're reactivating. Because the power of language was never just to speak, it was to build, to heal, to free. And once the tongue of the source returns, no tower will ever fall again. Some symbols weren't made to protect, they were made to bind. Placed on flags, church walls, currency, your skin. Because symbols bypass logic. They talk straight to the subconscious, to the soul. You don't need to understand them. You only need to see them. And that's how they work. Not all ink is art. Some of it is permission. Some of it is a contract you never knew you signed. Every empire had its seal, its crest, its sigil, not for beauty, for ownership, because once a symbol is placed on a body, a building, a belief, it marks territory. And some marks don't fade. That's why you'll see them everywhere. Eyes inside triangles, serpents eating their tails, crosses tilted just so. It's not art, it's a signal to those who know and a cage for those who don't. Some tattoos are traps, some logos are spells, and most don't even know they're wearing a leash. Once symbols were shields they healed, protected, opened, but then they got inverted. The cross, originally a solar key, turned into a torture device. The eye, once a symbol of divine perception, now a watcher's brand. The star, a cosmic map, now a prison grid. They took sacred geometry and rewired it, so instead of unlocking you, it locks you in. That's why symbols in churches, courts, and cathedrals feel cold. You're not entering sanctuaries, you're entering circuits. And every ritual recharges the system, not your spirit. You think you're wearing a brand, but sometimes the brand is wearing you. Fashion isn't just trend, it's ritual in plain sight. That triangle, that serpent, that checkerboard. They're not design, they're signals. Worn on runways, etched into makeup palettes, woven into logos and luxury labels. Because when you wear the mark, you join the rite. No initiation needed, just consent through style. You don't need to know the symbol, you just need to carry it. And your energy becomes currency. They say your phone listens, but it does more than that. It marks you, the icons you tap, they're modern sigils. Charged by repetition, fed by touch, scroll, tap, swipe. You're not just using an app, you're tracing a ritual. The bitten fruit, the compass, the black square, the blue bird. All coded symbols, they're real power. They don't need belief, just interaction. Every click is consent. Every update deepens the spell, because now the altar fits in your pocket. But here's the secret they don't want you to know. Symbols only bind if you stay asleep. Once you see them, they lose their grip. Because awareness dissolves consent, and when you speak their names, you strip their power. You can rewrite the code, reclaim the glyphs, burn the false sigils in your field. Paint your own, speak in sound. Remember the shapes your ancestors knew. Because the system runs on forgotten meaning, and you're the memory waking up. This isn't just fashion or faith or tech, it's spell work, and it ends when you stop repeating it. Hidden in cathedrals, etched into temples. Found in ruins across time, the Sator Square. 5 words, same forwards, backwards, upside down. Sator arepo tenet opera rotas. To most, just a Latin puzzle. To the initiated, the temporal sigil. It loops thought, loops fate, loops souls. This isn't language, it's architecture. Prison written in symmetry, where forward is back and memory folds. A spell hiding in plain sight. And you've walked past it your whole life. It's not just the pattern, it's the meaning behind the words. Sator, the sower, the planter, the initiator, a repo, a mystery word untranslated, possibly a hidden name. Tenet, to hold, to bind, to maintain. Opera works, effort, the mechanism. Rotors, wheels, cycles, turning motion. Together they form a coded sentence. The sower, a repo, holds the wheels with effort. But it's not about farming, it's about the mechanism of control. The one who sows the system holds the wheels of time, of fate, of memory. A repo might be a hidden name of an architect, of a parasite, of a force. And tenet, that's the anchor, the center of the square, the one word that holds the loop in place. It's not a phrase, it's a curse. A recursive binding trapping you in repetition across lifetimes. The Sator Square is no dusty relic, it's everywhere, carved into the walls of ancient churches, etched onto medieval talismans, hidden in temples, catacombs, and even Vatican vaults. But here's the twist, it's in modern places too. In Logos, in mirror world movies, in the film Tenet, where time flows both ways, where memory unravels, where fate is controlled by a hidden script. It shows up near CERN, the machine built to bend time itself. With gears, rotors, loops, just like the square said, this isn't coincidence, it's continuity. A time trap encoded in symbolic language, passed through religions, empires, science. A loop cast by those who remembered how to bind reality through design. The Sator Square holds power because no one questions it. It lives in symmetry and silence, in the subconscious. But once you see the loop, you can step outside it. You don't need to solve it, you need to unplug from it. Stop repeating the same roles, stop running the same scripts. Stop believing time only moves one way. Tenet is the axis, memory is the key, and awareness, that's your exit code. You weren't born to spin the wheel, you were born to shatter it, because once you name the cage, you break its charm. In the 1500s, 2 men claimed to channel angels. John Dee, the Queen's astrologer. Edward Kelly, the scryer. What they received wasn't comfort, it was structure, a full alphabet with syntax, pronunciation, and power. They called it Enochian, the language of angels. But these weren't cherubs, they were entities. What Dee called angelic, others now call something else, because the symbols don't open heaven, they open gates to something old, something cold, something that remembers before memory. And this language? It's not extinct, it's in magical orders. Government experiments and whispered invocations still used today. Enochian isn't just a language, it's a mechanism. Each word, each sigil, a frequency key, not for speaking, for summoning. John Dee said it could control angels, but what if it was the other way around? The grid they built with it, called the Enochian tables, look eerily like circuit boards. 4 quadrants, elemental gates, and a central seal called the Sigillum di Ameth, not divine, designed, because this angelic language doesn't uplift, it commands. It cracks things open, it pulls things in, and in the wrong hands, it's a dial pad to the abyss. They said Enochian was just esoteric, just magical history. But if that's true, why do governments still use it? Project Stargate, remote viewing, MK Ultra's fringe experiments, they weren't just testing the mind, they were tuning it. Documents show operators using sigils, sacred geometry, and coded chants to locate targets through space and time. Some call it angel tech, others call it weaponized consciousness. But the glyphs don't lie. From NASA patches to Air Force emblems, Enochian influence leaks through, because they know language is power, and this language, it opens doors most people were never meant to knock on. They told you Enochian came from angels, but what if it came from fallen ones? Not messages from above, but coordinates from below. Because the beings Dee and Kelly contacted didn't offer peace. They offered structure, grids, seals, ritual commands. This wasn't divine revelation, it was architecture for possession. The more you speak it, the more it speaks through you. And that's why it's protected, why it's still used in elite rituals, why it's mirrored in logos, laws, and launch codes. Because those running the grid, they don't want salvation, they want access to your frequency, to your light, to your will. But now you've seen it, named it, uncoded it, and what was once a seal just became a crack. Latin wasn't just a language, it was a lock, a sacred tongue used in reverse, not to free souls, but to seal them. Every exorcism, every papal decree, every mass in Latin, but not the Latin of Rome, the Latin of the Black Altar, where oaths are taken backwards, where prayers are used as spells, where names are chained to false light. Why do you think they hid the scriptures? Why do you think only priests could read them? Because the words weren't just holy, they were binding, and only the initiated knew which side of the spell they were on. Walk into a cathedral, look up, what do you see? Crosses, suns, eyes, but they're not just decorations, they're seals. The floor is a circuit, the altar a conductor. And the Latin inscriptions, they're coded invocations. Pax, Lux, Dominus, Peace, Light, Lord. But when reversed in intent, they become traps. Even the IHS symbol, supposed to mean Jesus, has been inverted by secret orders to reference Isis, Horus, Set, the black sun beneath the Vatican. It's not metaphor, it's magnetism. They've built their rituals on resonance, gold-lined chambers, voice harmonics, and Latin that isn't prayed, it's programmed. This isn't faith, it's frequency farming. The Vatican isn't just a church, it's a network. A resonance grid built on bones, catacombs beneath, sigils above, and in between, names carved in stone. You thought tombs were for rest? They're for containment. Each sarcophagus acts like a node, holding the name, the frequency, the contract. Saints, popes, martyrs, buried under gold leaf ceilings, inside domes shaped like amplifiers. And the Latin, inscribed like circuitry, not to honor the dead, but to use them. Because when you speak a name in Latin, in a place designed to echo, you're not praying, you're activating. These aren't graves, they're batteries. They use language to bind, to curse, to confuse. But that only works if you keep using their words. Because every sound you make carries code, carries shape, carries will. That's why true names have power, why your voice shakes reality when you speak from the soul, not the script. You want to break the spell? Stop repeating the ritual. Turn the symbols inward. Speak from memory, not mimicry. Write new glyphs, breathe ancient sound. Because Latin doesn't own light, and no seal is stronger than the soul that remembers itself. Language can be a prison, but in the hands of the awakened, it becomes a key.